Most people don't realize how much of our world exists underground. These stories are about people who went where they weren't supposed to, and realized too late why those places were sealed. Story 1. I signed on for the tunnel inspection job because it paid triple time and nobody asked too many questions. Just me, a flashlight, a radio, and 8 hours in the old utility line running beneath the city's north side, part of a decommissioned subway expansion from the 70s. Supposedly hadn't been entered in 20 years. The entrance was just a rusted hatch in the middle of a weed-choked lot. I pried it open, and the smell hit first. Wet concrete, damp metal, and something else. Like old tapestries left in a flooded basement. The ladder down was shaky. Halfway, one rung gave under my boot with a groan I felt in my teeth. I dropped the last 6 feet, landing hard on the service walk. My flashlight beam sliced through the dark, revealing crumbling brick walls and fat condensation trails snaking down like dried blood. At first, it was quiet. Just the drip of water somewhere ahead, rhythmic, almost like footfalls. I kept walking. The tunnel stretched on, straight as a ruler for what felt like miles. Every sound echoed wrong. My breath, my boots on wet gravel, off by a fraction, like the tunnel swallowed part of the noise and spit it back later. I found the first thing about an hour in, a backpack, just sitting on the ground like someone dropped it and walked away. Canvas, old but not ancient, zipped shut. When I opened it, it was empty. No tags, no identifying marks, nothing but a faint smell of mildew. I radioed it in. Static answered. I tried again. Nothing. That's when the echoes started changing. I'd step. Silence. Then, 2 seconds later, a step behind me. Same pace, same rhythm. But when I spun around, the beam only caught empty tunnel, stretching into blackness. I told myself it was the acoustics. These old tubes play tricks. I kept moving. Then came the writing. About 2 kilometers in, the walls changed. Smooth concrete, clean. And on them, scratches. Not graffiti. Deeper than that. Like something had been dragged or clawed its way down. Some patches looked almost patterned. Circles, lines. One section had 4 vertical gouges, parallel, spaced like fingers, but too wide. More like hands the size of dinner plates. I didn't touch them. Didn't want to. The air grew thick. My head started to ache. I checked my watch. Only 4 hours had passed. Felt like 8. Then I heard the tapping. Not water. Deliberate. 3 short knocks. Pause. 3 again. Like a signal. I froze. The radio stayed silent. I turned off my light. Darkness crashed in. Absolute. I counted my breaths. After a minute, I heard it again. 3 taps. Closer. I flicked the light back on. Nothing. But 20 feet ahead, something lay in the middle of the tunnel. A shoe. Work boot. Right out of a safety catalog. Same as mine. I picked it up. Still warm. Laces untied. Inside, the insole was gone. And the inside, stained. Dark. Flaking. I backed up. The tapping started again. Not behind me now. Above. I looked up. The tunnel ceiling was about 10 feet high. Cracked, but solid. No hatches, no vents. But the sound came from above. Same rhythm. 3 taps. Then silence. I started walking back. Fast. But after a while, I stopped. Because I realized something. The backpack. The boot. They were both on the left side of the tunnel. Facing forward. I turned slowly. Behind me, stretched into the dark, dozens of items. Shoes, jackets, hats, a wallet, a phone. All placed neatly along the left wall. Like someone was collecting them, or leaving a trail. I ran, or tried to. My lungs burned. The beam bounced wildly. The tapping followed. Not behind, not above. Now it was on the walls. All around. Like fingers drumming, keeping time. I never found the hatch. The radio still doesn't work. I sit now, writing this by flashlight. Battery's low. I hear breathing, not mine. And every few minutes, 3 taps, just like before. And then, silence. Story 2. I never believed in ghosts. Still don't. But I can't explain what happened in that tunnel. It started as a job, part of a crew doing structural assessments on old subway maintenance passages beneath the city. Most were sealed off after the system modernized, but some still existed, forgotten and crumbling. We were checking integrity, looking for erosion, water damage, anything that might affect the new lines being laid above. I was alone that day. Just me and my flashlight, the others having moved to another section. The air was thick, stale, like breathing through a damp cloth. Concrete groaned overhead from trains passing far above. But down there, it felt like the weight of the whole city was pressing down on my shoulders. The tunnel sloped gently downward, lined with old pipes, some broken, others wrapped in decades of grime. I was marking cracks when I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Not metal on metal. Not water. Something deliberate. I stopped, listening. Silence returned, heavy and total. I told myself it was stress, or a pipe contracting. But then it came again, fainter this time, from deeper in the dark. I shouldn't have followed it. The beam of my flashlight trembled as I moved forward. The tunnel narrowed, and the ceiling dipped so low I had to crouch. My boots splashed through shallow, oily water. The smell changed. Less musty, more organic, like wet earth and something else I couldn't name. Then I saw the markings. At first, I thought it was graffiti, crude lines scratched into the concrete. But they weren't random. They formed patterns, repeating sequences of dots and dashes, like some kind of code. Some were fresh, as if done recently with a sharp tool. Others were faded, layered over years of mold and soot. I pulled out my phone, took a few pictures. The battery dropped to 14%. I didn't notice until later. The tapping stopped. In its place. Breathing. Not mine. Shallow. Wet. Coming from a junction up ahead, where 2 tunnels split. I edged forward, heart hammering, and shone the light. The right passage was blocked by a collapsed wall, rubble piled high. The left. It curved sharply, but something was there. A pile of clothes, a jacket, torn and filthy, crumpled beside a rusted lunchbox. I stepped closer. The box was open. Inside, a sandwich, wrapped in wax paper. Moldy, yes, but not completely decayed. Like it had been left weeks, not years. Then I saw the shoes. 2 work boots, lined up neatly, like someone had taken them off before going farther in. My skin went cold. There was no way someone had been down here recently. The access points were all locked, monitored, and yet, those marks on the wall, that food, the breath I'd heard. I backed away slowly, my boots echoing too loud in the silence. I didn't run. I was afraid that if I ran, something would start running too. When I got back to the entrance, the others were waiting. They joked about how pale I looked. I didn't tell them what I'd seen. Couldn't. How do you explain the feeling that something down there knows the tunnels better than we do? That it doesn't live up there with us. It lives here, in the dark, learning. They sealed that section a week later. Structural risks, they said. But sometimes, when I pass a subway grate, I look down into the darkness beneath, and I wonder if it's looking back. Story 3. They called it the Old Line, a decommissioned tunnel beneath the city, buried under layers of newer subways and forgotten in the bureaucratic rot of infrastructure. I was hired to assess water damage, but the moment my headlamp flickered to life, I knew this wasn't just about leaking pipes. The air was colder here, damp and static charged, like the tunnel was holding its breath. My boots squelched as I moved, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence. I'd always hated confined spaces, but this wasn't just small. It watched. At first, it was the creaks. Not the usual groans of settling concrete, but rhythmic, deliberate. A tap, tap, tap that started when I stopped walking. I'd freeze, heart thrumming, and wait. Nothing except the echo. Then, another tap, closer. My headlamp swept the walls, catching gouges in the mortar, fresh enough to glisten. Someone had carved "Get Out" in jagged letters, but the final T was smeared, as if the person's hand had been yanked away. I told myself it was graffiti. Old graffiti. But then I found the tools. A rusted crowbar lay in the center of the tunnel, positioned oddly, as though dropped mid-use. Next to it, a journal, waterlogged and cracking at the edges. The pages were filled with the same looping script, frantic and repetitive. They don't want you here. They never wanted us here. Don't trust the sound. Don't trust the... The ink bled out, the rest illegible. Hours passed. My radio crackled with interference, static hissing like whispers. I started talking aloud to drown it out, but my own voice felt intrusive, a trespass. Then, deeper in the tunnel, I heard it. The sound the journal warned about. Not a tap this time, but a hum, low and resonant, vibrating through the soles of my boots. It didn't come from anywhere specific. It existed, full and whole, as though the tunnel itself had a voice. I backed away, my pulse sinking with the hum's slow thrum. My flashlight flickered again, and when it steadied, I saw it. A series of small, round marks in the dust. Too evenly spaced to be footprints, too shallow for rodent burrows. They led toward the hum, toward the dark. I should have left. I told myself to leave, but the part of me that still clings to professional idiocy stayed put, shoving the journal into my pack and inching forward. The hum swelled, and the temperature dropped, my breath crystallizing in the air. Then, a new sound, a scraping, wet and insistent, like something dragging itself across concrete. I turned and ran, my headlamp casting frantic shadows. The tunnel blurred into a maze of cold and sound, the scraping gaining until I emerged, gasping, into the maintenance shaft. Dawn bled through the grate above. No one believed me when I described the hum. They said the tunnel's been sealed for decades. No one's been there in years. They replaced my flashlight, said the battery was dead. I signed the report, but I didn't mention the journal, or the marks. Some things, even in the dark, are better left unspoken.